Greetings of the day, dear learners. This is Dr. Shaumili Mandal, an assistant professor in the Department of English at Vasant Kanya Mahavidyalaya, admitted to the privileges of Banaras Hindu University. I am offering this 12-week course on introducing folk literature of India, virtually as a part of Swayam NPTEL MOOC course under the aegis of Ministry of Education, Government of India. This course is of 3 credits. So, now I'll be starting my Module 1, that is, Introducing Folklore as a Discipline, Definition and Key Concepts. And before that, I am giving you the details of the 5 lectures which I'll be covering in the first module. Lecture 1 will be Definition and History of Folklore. Lecture 2, Parameters of Folklore. Lecture 3, Folklore and its multidimensional approach. Lecture 4, Classifying Folklore. And Lecture 5, Folk Culture in India. So dear learners, now I will start with the Lecture 1 of Module 1, that is, Definition and History. On the very first slide, we have a very prominent folklorist named Johann Gottfried von Herder, who was a German philosopher and literary critic who in his famous work Stimmen den Volker in Leyden translated Voices of the People in songs, introduced the term folk in German language and described folk songs as Volkslied. He was influenced by Indian culture and Hinduism and actually translated Shakuntala in German in 1803. He indeed made significant contributions to the development of cultural and national identity through his concept Volksgeist, that is, the spirit of the people. He defined folklore as a development of the soul of the folk, Volkslied, and a way to understand the authentic spirit and identity of a nation, particularly the German people. Herder believed that each nation had a unique cultural identity, shaped by its language, traditions, and customs. He argued that this spirit should be found in the folk songs, dances, and poetry of a people, which reflected their worldview, values, and historical experiences. Herder's 1773 publication, Volkslieder, Folk Songs, a collection of German folk songs, was one of his most influential works. In his book, he demonstrated how folk songs were not just artistic expressions, but essential elements of national character. He saw them as living testimonies to the experiences and struggles of the common people, conveying a sense of communal identity that was distinct from elite or aristocratic culture. Herder believed the importance of folk culture helped fuel the growing movement of nationalism in Europe, where people began to see the preservation of their traditions and language as a form of resistance to foreign domination and as a way of asserting their unique identity. Herder's ideas also laid the foundation for several academic fields. His work influenced the development of anthropology, folklore studies, and ethnomusicology, which study the cultural practices, traditions, and musics of different people. His emphasis on the value of folk traditions has remained a key concept in understanding how culture shapes and is shaped by national identity. We can say, to summarize, Herder's theory of Volksgeist and his work on folk songs were pivotal in shaping modern ideas of nationalism and cultural identity in Europe, and influenced academic disciplines that explore the relationship between culture, identity, and the arts. In the context of German-speaking countries, the Volkslied often draws upon themes like nature, love, work, and historical events. And many of them are in a simple, singable style, making them easy to remember and perform in communal settings. Examples of famous Volkslieder is a plural form. It includes Die Lorelei, a famous German folk ballad about a beautiful woman that lures sailors to their doom. Frère Jacques, originally a French folk song that became well known internationally, and O Tannenbaum, a German folk song widely associated with Christmas. Next, we'll come to the very famous William John Thoms. William John Thoms is credited with the coinage of the term folklore. In a letter to the Athenaeum in 1846, he coined the term folklore to describe manners, customs, observances, superstitions, ballads, proverbs of the olden time. He has been a founding member of the Folklore Society of England, the one of its kind, in 1878. He was a cultural nationalist who attempted to collect the folklores of England. The term folklore replaced more cumbersome phrases like popular antiquities or traditional customs and quickly became the standard term for the study of traditional beliefs, customs, stories, and practices within a community. Thoms was an extremely significant figure in the early development of folklore studies. His interest in folklore led him to found a journal in 1878, and he continued publication into the present day. His work established folklore as a legitimate academic field, and his ideas and journals played an instrumental role in the development of the folklore scholarship. So, Thoms' legacy is certainly notable in the realms of both folklore and literature. Having coined the term, he gave rise to an entire academic discipline and continuing to having a long-lasting impact on the society and the world. In 1849, a great event happened in Thoms' life. He began publishing his own weekly, and that after rejecting many titles and ignoring the advice of some well-wishers, he decided to call it Notes and Queries. His old appeal to the readers to send ballads, tales, proverbs, description of customs, and so forth brought many responses. Also, the rubric on folklore in both periodicals made the term familiar, and later the derivatives, folklorist and folkloric, emerged. Before resigning as an editor, Thoms told the story of his magazine in a series of short essays and published them in Notes and Queries for 1871 and 1872. In 1848, the groundbreaking work of Charles Dickens, Dombey and Sons, appeared, and one of the novel's most endearing character is the one-armed Captain Cuttle. Like so many other personages brought to life by Dickens, the good captain has a tag. He likes to repeat the maxim, when found, make a note of. Thoms used this catchphrase as a motto for his journal, and it was printed on the first page of his each issue. Next, we'll be talking about the very famous Grimm brothers, Wilhelm Grimm and Jacob Grimm, who were known as the Grimm brothers, used the Volkskunde term in their 1812 seminal work, Kinder- und Hausmärchen, translated Children's and Household Tales. They viewed folklore as the traditional stories, beliefs, and customs of a people, particularly those which passed down orally. They were heavily influenced by the 19th century Romantic movement, which aimed to revive interest in the rustic life of Europe. The brothers are among the best-known storytellers of folk tales, popularizing stories such as Cinderella, The Frog Prince, Hansel and Gretel, Town Musicians of Bremen, Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, Rumpelstiltskin, Sleeping Beauty, and the Snow White. Also, we can say Disney have nearly made movies of most of them. There have been also many interpretations of them in the recent days. It is considered the seminal work of Western children's literature and is listed by the UNESCO in its Memory of the World Registry. The fairy tale feature elements such as the magic mirror, the poisoned apple, the glass coffin, and the characters of the evil queen and the seven dwarfs. The seven dwarfs, interestingly, were first given individual names in the 1912 Broadway play, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, and then given different names in Walt Disney's 1937 film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So, Here I'll be discussing with you the story Rumpelstiltskin, which is one of the folk tales that we find in the 1812 edition. The story revolves around an imp who spins straw into gold in exchange for a woman's firstborn child. This genome like man appears demanding his payment when the young woman, who is now a queen, bears her first child. She begs before him to release her from the thoughtless vow under the condition that the young lady has to discover the name of the imp. Upon failing, the imp will take the child forever. One of the servants helped the queen by overhearing the name of the imp, who was celebrating good fortune in advance. And in this way, the queen retains the child. So, what are the key themes and symbols we have here? First is the folly of pride and deception. The miller's pride. Okay, so the queen was the miller's daughter previously before marriage, which leads him to boast of his daughter's skills, which results in a life-threatening situation for her. The miller's dishonestly ultimately causes his daughter great danger, a common theme in folk tales where hubris is punished and the innocent are caught in a web of deception. Also, we have the theme of the cost of bargaining. The miller's daughter initially offers a necklace, then a ring, and ultimately agrees to give up her firstborn child. This gradual escalation of what she must offer symbolizes the escalating cost of making deals and when desperate. It's a moral cautionary tale about the perils of making promises without understanding their dire consequence. Also, we have the role of the imp, Rumpelstiltskin, who is a mysterious and powerful creature who serves as both a trickster and a figure of dark magic. He appears to solve the daughter's problem, but the price he demands is steep. His name itself is an interesting piece of folklore, often thought to represent the mysterious, unknowable force that operates behind many folk tales, embodying the dark bargains and unseen cost of such deals. Also, we have the theme of cleverness and intelligence. The story also devises this, and despite being placed in an almost impossible situation, the miller's daughter, the queen, uses her intelligence to outwit Rumpelstiltskin. Her cleverness is a salvation, suggesting that knowledge holds the key to overcoming evil or an adversary. We also have the power of the names. Here we can see Rumpelstiltskin is actually obsessed with his name. And that's why he gives a condition that the queen has to say his name. Then only he will think of his deed and he will give back the queen her firstborn child. So, the power of identity and knowledge is a common theme in Rumpelstiltskin. The idea of naming as a form of control or power is a recurring motif in many myths and folk tales. They were a part, as I said, the brothers believed that folk tales were a pure, untainted form of culture, reflecting the language, values, and the worldview of people. They saw these tales as a direct connection to the past and the true spirit of the German people. Next, we are going to talk about another very famous anthropologist and folklorist, that is Victor Turner. Victor Turner defined folklore as a dynamic, living tradition involving the cultural expressions and practices of a community, including stories, rituals, beliefs, and performances that are passed down through generations. He was a British cultural anthropologist who primarily worked on symbols, and rites, and rituals by citing the Dembu tribe existing in present-day Zambia. His ethnographic studies paved the way for research methodology in folklore. He reintroduced the term communitas, meaning the equality and solidarity within the members of a group, disintegrating the previously existing social hierarchy in the concerned group. Communitas refers to a profound sense of equality, unity, and togetherness that arises within a community, especially during shared rituals or rites of passage. It's an intense collective experience that transcends the usual social hierarchies and distinctions, allowing people to connect with each other on a deeper, more equal level. Turner built on the earlier work of Arnold van Gennep, who wrote the groundbreaking book rites of passage and identified and analyzed the structure of rites of passage. Also, ceremonial events marking a person's transition from one social site to another, like birth, marriage, or death. Turner's contribution was to focus on the communitas that emerges during the liminal phase of these rites. So now the concept of liminality is very interesting. In the rite of a passage, individuals go through three stages: separation, liminality, and reintegration. In separation, the person is separated from their previous status or community. In the liminality phase, the person enters an ambiguous phase where they are between roles, neither here nor there. During this phase, they are often in a state of communitas where they are equal to others going through the same process. Then we have the reintegration. The person is reintegrated into the society with their new identity or role. During the liminal phase, individuals are in a state of communitas, which is characterized by egalitarianism, unity, and a sense of shared experience. It's a feeling of connection where all participants are equal and social distinctions dissolve temporarily. This is the acute point of community that I mentioned. The collective bond that forms as people undergo a shared experience that is often emotional, transformative, or spiritual. Also, we have seen examples of communitas in various cultures and rites of passage. For example, the pilgrimage of Mecca. During the pilgrimage to Mecca in Islam, all pilgrims, regardless of their social standing or background, wear the same simple garments and engage in the same rites, fostering a deep sense of equality and unity. We also have various coming of age ceremonies, where many indigenous cultures have rituals that mark the transition from childhood to adulthood, such as the bar mitzvah in Judaism. Also, we have the threading ceremony in India. Then, we have the festivals or communal celebrations. In some cultures, festivals like Carnival or Mardi Gras break down the social barriers between different classes and create a temporary, joyful community of equals. In a more contemporary context, communitas can arise in any situation where a group shares a profound experience. You can say also during a sports victory or a protest movement or even a concert where the energy and the unity of the crowd creates a powerful sense of collective belonging. Next, we are going to talk about another very prominent folklorist, that is Katherine Well. I've attached a photo of Katherine Well. Katherine Well contributed to the studies of folklore through her research on Chinese philosophy and Far Eastern culture. She theorized ritual as a theory and its various manifestations throughout the globe. Also laid down her observations about the differences among the rituals of the East and the West. Bell, in her extremely popular book, Ritual, Perspectives and Dimensions, published in 1997, forms categories of ritual action, which are a pragmatic compromise between simplicity and completeness. She mentions about a few rituals, that is, rites of passage, there's a life cycle rites, calendrical and commemorative rites, rites of exchange and communion, rites of affliction, rites of feasting, fasting, and festivals, and lastly, political rituals. According to her, rites of passage are ceremonies that culturally mark a person's transition from one stage of social life to another, much like Turner's viewpoint actually. According to her also, rites of passage are known as sanskaras. In Hinduism we have that, which is a purification, and are numbered from 10 to 40, varying with geographic, linguistic, or caste differences. Calendrical rites occur periodically and predictably, accompanying and seasonal changes in light, weather, agricultural work, and other social activities. Some occasions are reckoned according to the lunisolar calendar, and therefore the dates vary each year. They can be brought roughly or distinguished in terms of seasonal and commemorative celebration. Seasonal celebrations are rooted in the activities of planting and harvesting for agriculturists, or grazing or moving the herd for pastoralists. The second group of calendrical rites or commemorative rites includes activities that explicitly recall historical events, whether the date is questionable. rites of affliction, which is frequently invoked by Turner, attempt to rectify a state of affairs that has been disturbed or disordered. They heal, exorcise, and purify. Healing rituals are particularly in demand as they differ considerably from the modern scientific knowledge used in the 20th century. Purification is a major theme within the rites of affliction. Also, it can be understood in a variety of ways. Spiritual purification is the purpose of one of the largest rituals in the world, the Kumbh Mela of India. According to a legend, the festival is held after every 12 years for attaining liberation from the present life. While early theorists tended to see this genre of ritual as particularly magical due to what they deemed to be its manipulative intent, more recent scholarship has usefully focused on other dimensions. In particular, how these rituals affect people and the larger community. Bell asserts that indeed, even though this genre of rites may be particularly effective in maintaining the status quo of the traditional social order in a community, they demonstrate that the human realm is not completely subordinate to the realms of spiritual power. These rites open up opportunities for redefining the cosmological order in response to new challenges and new formulations of human needs. In feasting and fasting rites, there may be little overt testimony to the presence of deities, but a great deal of emphasis on the public display of religio-cultural sentiments. They are extended rituals, actually, that can overlay the religio-social value system with nuanced experiences of relative holism and hierarchy. Next, we are going to talk about our another prominent folklorist, Vladimir Prop. So, Vladimir Prop was a Soviet folklorist who is recognized for his analysis on the structure of folklore with respect to Russian folk tales. Predominantly, all his works were published in Russian, his native language. He himself translated few of his works into English, that is, the morphology of the folktale. He was influenced heavily by Russian formalism. Prop also describes the set of character functions, the sequence in which they appear, and the overall structure of the archetype of a fairy tale. Prop's work was intended to provide insights for the description and classification of folk tales. Based on a sample of 100 Russian folk stories, Prop believed the narrative all shared 31 distinct functions. He also argued the functions must be defined independently of the characters who are supposed to fulfill them, and these plot points occurred in the same order in the story. So next, we are going to talk about Alan Dundes. Alan Dundes defined folklore as a mirror of culture, reflecting the traditions, beliefs, and values of a group of people who share at least one common factor. He came up with the concept of allomotive, combining allomorph and motifeme, which he used in studying the structure of a folktale by using motifs as a unit. He is also credited in promoting folkloristics as a specialized discipline of study within the broad field of epistemology. Dundes disputed the notion that folklore should automatically be identified with peasant or rural groups, or with people from the past. In his view, folklore is not confined to any particular time or place. Folklore is dynamic, ever evolving, and exists in all societies, including contemporary urban environments. He argued that folklore is constantly created and recreated and reshaped to suit new situations. Dundes rejected the idea that folklore was the domain of rural, less industrialized societies. Instead, he emphasized that urban populations are equally capable of creating folklore. Modern folklore can be seen in urban legends, graffiti, songs, slang, rumors, jokes, and even internet memes. These forms of expression are just as much folklore as the traditional fairy tales and myths collected by folklorists in the past. For Dundas, folklore is not something that dies out as society modernizes. Instead, it adapts and changes to fit the needs of contemporary life. As society evolves, so do the forms and functions of folklore. People today continue to produce folklore to express identity, community bonds, social concerns, and other collective experiences. Dundas argued that folklore is a living tradition, not a relic of the past. One of Dundas' key ideas was that folklore is not limited to elaborate rituals or formal traditions. It is found in everyday life. He emphasized that folklore includes the ways in which people express themselves informally through oral traditions, proverbs, anecdotes, family stories, and even small talk. The way people interact with each other in everyday situations, sharing jokes, recounting personal experiences, and spreading rumors can be seen as a part of continuing folklore tradition. Dundas' broader perspective allowed for a more inclusive and fluid definition of folklore. For example, he often looked at urban legends, like the stories about haunted houses, dangerous strangers, or weird but true occurrences, as prime examples of how folklore manifests in contemporary, often urban context. These legends serve social functions such as warning people, forming social bonds, or reflecting anxieties within society. So, listeners, now we come to the end of our first lecture of the first module. Thank you for patiently listening to me. And in this lecture, I have tried to give you a comprehensive idea about the various definitions given by most prominent folklorists who have paved the way for the study of folklore as a, you can say, as a scholarship. And also, I have tried to give you a glimpse of the history of folklore through the various folklorists, mentioning, as I said, the most prominent ones, from Grimm brothers to Victor Turner to Vladimir Prop to Alan Dundas to Katherine Well and till the others. Thank you.